So I love my kayak. I love to go kayak fishing, but I have a bad back. And it had gotten to the point where I really couldn't do it anymore. I wasn't enjoying it. I was even thinking about selling my kayak. So I had to figure something out. Everybody's situation is different. Probably a lot of people watching this have either you have back problems normally or you're just uncomfortable when you get into your kayak after you've been out there for a while. I looked around a lot of videos. I tried to figure it out, and I finally came to a solution that worked for me. Hopefully you'll be able to take something away from this video, and it may be able to help you. I've got an older kayak. I have a Hobie Adventure Fish. They don't even make these anymore. They're called a Revo. Actually, they do make them. They're just called a Revo. The body hasn't changed at all. It's the exact same geometry of the kayak, but the Mirage drive is different. The seat's different. That's one of the critical parts. But the overall length and the shape of the mold is essentially the same. It's a great boat. It's a skinny boat. It's not meant for going into the small backwaters because it's 16 feet long. It's really a B2B offshore boat, which is what I use it for exclusively. I've taken it in the intercoastal. It's just not my thing. There's plenty of people that love it, and you can find cheaper or boats that are beamier, a little more stable, not quite as hydrodynamic. That'll be fine for doing that. But the Revo is fantastic if you're going offshore. Mine's a 2011, and it had a bad seat that came with it. They don't even make those seats anymore. They've gone to the chair, but the chairs are super expensive, and they don't fit this boat anyway. So I've done a couple modifications. I changed out the chair, and I modified the tiller with some reins to be able to make it work for me. And I'm going to show you how I did those, and hopefully it'll help you out too. Okay, so this is the seat that comes with the older kayaks, the Revos and the Outbacks and whatever. And it may still come in some of their lower end kayaks, but in the higher end ones, they definitely have the chair, which looks comfortable. It looks really nice, but it's like $600 and something, which to me seems a bit ridiculous. Plus, on mine, because this is a 2011 boat, won't fit. They don't have, there's no kit for modifying it. So even if I spent $600 on the seat, I'd be in a situation of figuring out a way to modify it. So the problem is it's killing my back. Something about this, the way it fit in there, the way I fit in the boat, and the way it reached, and whatever it was, it just hurt. And if anybody who has back problems knows, there's no specific answer to it. Sometimes the damn thing just hurts. And so I needed to get out of that situation. So I watched some videos and did some thinking and decided that the sort of stadium chair, camp chair build was the way to go for me. So I just want to show you the way I did it, because if you have an older kayak or you're just looking, you have a Revo, because the body hasn't changed any. When I talk about being an older kayak, they've changed like the hole placement, this kind of stuff, but the main rotoform design of the body is exactly the same. There's minor detail changes, but the whole geometry of the main part is exactly the same. So the first thing I wanted to do is get it up and stable. And to do that, I bought 4 feet of 1 by 1 by 1/8 inch aluminum. And I got mine at my local Home Depot, and it was less than $20. I don't remember how much it was, but it wasn't that bad. Aluminum doesn't rust. You know, it gets a weird corrosion pitting thing on the outside of it, but it doesn't continue. Like, it forms a layer, and then it stops rusting. And it's pretty easy to cut. And I cut this using a Dremel with a cutoff blade, which you can buy at any Home Depot. I'll actually put a link down to the Dremel blades that I used for that. And so I simply put this on the kayak, and I measured the edge to both sides. And then I cut this at about a 45-degree angle, give or take. Did it by eye. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to be able to get my rivet in there appropriately. And so what I did with this is I marked the sides, both edges. I cut them. I put marine goop underneath. Okay, good thick layer of that. Good thick layer in here. Drilled out for my rivets, and I'll do another video showing you how I do rivets. Put my rivet in there, and then there it is. And it's near the structural part where they want you to mount the outriggers. And that's what this is. These are the Hobie outriggers. So I figure this is actually a pretty strong part of the boat. They flattened it out. So I'm assuming that that's okay for attachment points. And I haven't had any significant frame folding or any issues with it since I put that in. I did the same thing moving forward a little bit. Pull this knife out. And here I did exactly the same thing. I measured it. It's hanging. It's jiggling a little bit because I've still got it hanging from the ceiling. And then I did the exact same thing. Now for me, this turned out to be the perfect distance from here to here for what I needed for my seat. This is where I have my rod holders that work great for me. And I'll show you those a little bit later, another time. This knife also is my bait knife that I use. I got it off of Amazon. And it clips, it gives me a little attachment point for this. So basically the upshot is when you're done is you have one right there and one in the front. And you want to base that measurement on the width of your seat. So in my case, I bought an orange stadium chair, and I like orange because, you know, the more orange you have out there, the better. And you can see that it sits right on there. And I'll give a link to this one. I like it. It's got rubber on the bottom, and it seems to be well reviewed on Amazon. I put a lot of Corrosion X on all of my parts, all of my steel parts. So here, I've actually gone through and painted it, and I'll kind of go over that in a minute with you. I've added a storage pouch to the back. This is a Wilderness Systems, which I got on sale. It has a little bungee here that holds it together. It attaches to the bottom of the seat. And then up top, I poked a hole, 2 holes for it, and then put more marine goop here to keep the seams from coming apart. And it actually stays on really well. It's nice and snug, and it fits there perfectly. Okay, so for attaching it, what I did was I bought some tie straps, or tie-down straps, whatever, and figured out how long I needed them to be, and then I shortened them. I'm going to stop for a second and put the 2 back ones on and show you. So here's the way I put the loop around. Now in my case, I actually went around the outrigger bar, but there's no reason for you to do that, obviously if you don't have one. What I would recommend is making sure that when you align it, the pull is up to tighten it, because if you don't, it's going to be really hard to get to it. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on the other side now, and then I'll tighten the back up, and I'll show that to you. Okay, so these are tight now, and these are just regular old car or exterior tie-down straps, and I've got them on both sides, connecting this. Now I've got it, and then so that when it sits up, it's not hitting the metal. So I've got the metal down below and out of the way. So that's the side of the seat right there. Okay. Now, one of the drawbacks about this seat, the one that I chose, is that it's not adjustable. And I did that for 2 reasons. One is I wasn't sure it was going to work. So I didn't want to spend a lot of money on an adjustable seat only to find out the thing still didn't work and I wasn't comfortable and my back still hurt. So I bought a regular stadium chair. And the first time I took it out, I realized that I actually wanted to be a little bit more reclined than this. Because if you like it like this, you can simply put the straps on the bottom and you're done. Like I say, this one is not adjustable. It has two positions, closed and open. Okay, so you can put the straps here, one on each side, and just be done with it. But what I ended up doing, these are the straps, by the way, just to show you a better close-up of them. And I cut and melted the ends with just a barbecue grill lighter. Okay. So what I ended up doing was getting pool noodles, which I found that I really liked because it added a bit of padding, like a shock absorber to the front of the seat. So and then I cut them to length and put them between the metal here and my seat. And I'm going to put those in place and then show you what they look like. All right, so these are in place now. So basically, pool noodles here, acting as sort of a shock absorber and raising the seat up a little bit. Tie straps on each side, connecting this together. When you sit on it, the seat, it compresses, then you can tighten this a little bit more. Two more tie straps in the back to hold it. So really, you're looking at 4 cuts of metal. Each angle, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? Then you're looking at drilling 4 holes for each of the rivets, okay? Then you have to buy the seat, buy these, cut the ends off to melt them if you want to, just to clean it up, and some marine goop, and you're done. And that's a seat upgrade for a Hobie Revo. The other thing elevating a seat like this does is it gives you a tremendous amount of space under your butt, which is incredibly useful. I found this to be one of the hugest advantages so far, besides my back not crying. It allows me to put tackle and other things in there. I can just clip a leash on. I'll show you my equipment another time. Thank you. And I've taken it out on the water already, and it's just great. It saved my back. It kept me from having the day be absolutely miserable. So this will work on another boat. This is just for the Revo. You can probably find other videos for other boats that show you slightly different configurations, but here's what works for mine. See ya. But one of the problems with elevating your chair is that the tiller is no longer easily accessible. And reaching down constantly I realized that was hurting my back because I'm sitting back in my chair and I'm actually pretty comfortable, and then I have to constantly reach down to adjust the tiller, and it just puts me in a bad position to reach down. I don't really have long arms. I'm not a very tall guy, and that just makes it worse. So the first addition I made was basically reins to this, and it was pretty simple. All I did was I drilled a small hole through the tiller, and this is 550 paracord, and I knotted it on both sides so that it doesn't slip. And then I added a pad eye here on the side so that when you pull it in this direction, it moves it that way. And I added a second pad eye here on the deck so that when you pull it, it moves it that way. So now I have reins that I can pull from up top seated, and that was certainly a huge upgrade. But thinking about it, what worries me is that this fail point is right here, that I'm actually pulling up. So the fail point is going to be that the vector of force is up on this, and I really just want it to be sideways, going from here to here. So what I'm going to do today is figure out a way to put a hole through this and not add any additional water. And the first thought I'm going to try is this. This is a stainless steel drinking straw. You can get them pretty much anywhere. They're a replacement for the plastic, non-economic or eco-friendly plastic straws that exist. And the idea is if I put it at an angle here, if you look, you see basically the way that that line, the way that that rope flows, I'm going to drill a hole through there. Cut that so that it fits. Buff the edges so that they're nice and not sharp and won't cut the line. And then add in a bit of marine goop, and hopefully that will be enough. So we'll be back in a minute to see how that works. All right, one tool that I highly recommend that's really ridiculously cheap for what it is a pair of calipers. I think I got these at Harbor Freight, and they're really not very accurate, but they will certainly ballpark it for you. And this is showing up as basically 6 millimeters on the outside for the steel straw. My engineer friends use ones that are much more accurate, but for my level of what I'm doing, this is just fine. All right, so this drill bit that I'm checking here is actually going to be 5. So I'm not sure I have a 6. I'm going to try that and see how it works. And maybe I wouldn't mind if it's a little bit tight. So we're going to go ahead and try that first. Okay. I'm absolutely a kind of do-it-by-eye kind of guy, for better or for worse. It hasn't always been the best. It hasn't always worked out fantastic for me, but that's the way we're going to do it. So first I'm going to mark this with just a little bit of a spot so that I can get this out, push this out of the way so I don't hit anything. I certainly don't want to hit any of the internals of the tiller setup there. All right, so we're going to go in at about like this. Whoops. All right. That looks about even. Okay. All right. Sorry if the camera moved. I'm trying to do this one-handed. All right. Let's see how that looks. So there's my first hole right there. And there's the second one. All right, so we're going to try, this is the 6 millimeter tube. And surprisingly enough, it doesn't fit. I don't know why I never learned this lesson. But it doesn't actually, you can't actually fake things like an entire millimeter. So that definitely is not working. But I did find a second drill bit. And this one appears to be 6.1, which is, or 6. Let's say it's probably whatever that is in standard measurement. So we're going to switch out and try that one. All right, stand by. All right, so my wife, who's quite a bit smarter than me, realized that that's actually 1/4. So the formula is your standard stainless steel drinking straw, which is nice because it's already stainless steel, and then a 1/4 inch drill bit. And then what you end up with is this, which fits in there pretty nicely. So that's where we're going to start with. And now I'm going to cut that, I'm going to mark that just on the edges, and then I'm going to cut that down with a Dremel, and we'll see how that fits. All right, what I've got is a Dremel style tool, that'll focus, and a basic just sacrificial cutting bit, the kind that goes away the more you use it. This is a Wen, W-E-N, which I've had for quite some years. It's a Dremel copy, but it seems to work pretty fine, actually, pretty great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my safety glasses on, which I would definitely recommend for anything like this. And I'm going to put this at about the angle I think it should be. There's a step off here. I don't know if you can see particularly well. Let me move the camera. There, that's a little better. Okay, there's a step off there. And then what I'm going to do is simply try to cut this straight based on this angle. Give myself a little bit of cover there. Okay. Dremels are great. Okay, so let's do a test fit on that. Okay. All right, so it looks like the winging it did okay. It's a little big at the bottom. Let's see, I may have just had the angle wrong. So it's a tiny bit off there, but it's really not too bad. It doesn't feel too bad, and I'm gonna buff that down when we're done. So I think we'll call that good. Now the question is, should I flare it a little bit? I'm not sure it's gonna stay in the tube. Stay too well if I don't. Let's try doing a little flare. All right, so what I'm gonna do to make a flare is just basically make 2 cuts. See if I can get that to focus. 1 cut like this. Let me focus there. 1 cut like that, and then 1 cut perpendicular to that. And so if I do that, hopefully it's going to allow me to bend the edges back. Okay. Okay. Well, sorry, it's not focusing at this distance. Okay, so now you see I've got, come on, there we go. Four cuts, and we're gonna bend those backwards. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is take these edges that I made and bend them like this. Oops, sorry. Okay, so now I've got sort of a little, it's like a hollow point expansion or something. Well, it turns out I wasn't coordinated enough to cut this and record it at the same time. But what we've got is one side that has the flange right there, and the other side, oops, that I cut off flush. So between that, now we'll see how the rope passes through. So let's get this. Yeah. I've also attracted the attention of a couple of yellow flies. Well, they may not be as swarm worthy as some of the other stuff. Man, they are annoying. So I'm trying to do this while I fight off their advances. Let's see if I can get this guy to come through. There we go. Okay, so now when we pull this, bam, now it pulls on the right plane. Not too bad. All right, and just to show you what the final piece looks like, we'll pull it out. So this is a straw, a stainless steel drinking straw, cut down and then deformed on the edge to make flanges. And then the far side is simply cut to approximately, come on, focus, the angle of the boat. It's a little rough there, but focus. There it is. But marine goop is magic stuff. Okay, this is actually out of order because I did that thing where I thought I was recording, but I wasn't actually recording. And then I set it down, and I thought I turned it off, and then I recorded, 20 minutes of me walking around the garage. So look, here's the flange here. And to get it spread out when I pushed it in, what I did is I used I think is this a ball peen hammer? I believe it is. So I ended up with this because I found it on the side of the road with a bag of random tools that fell out of somebody's truck. And so I happen to have one. But this round part here, which I guess is the ball of the ball peen, was perfect for flattening that out. So I flattened the flange out. And then on the outside, it meshed nice and flat. There's a little divot there, and that's where I tried to cut this in place. I don't recommend doing that. Mark it, and then take it with your Dremel, and then cut it. Now for the gluing part, I use marine goop, which is fantastic. You'll see it's all over my kayak. This is that clear, gummy stuff that I use. The big thing about it is it's UV protected. So it's glue that stays flexible, so it'll move a little bit, and the sun won't get it. So what I did is I put a big blob over this. You can't really see it because it's dry, but this actually feels pretty smooth. It's still there, and it's not the prettiest. I mean, it looks like an expanded shell of some kind. But then I put a lot of the glue there, a lot of the glue on the side, and then when I pushed it through, I used a pipe cleaner. And this part's actually pretty critical. All right? So push the pipe cleaner through a few times once you've got the glue smeared all the way around there, and pull it out and make sure that you get the marine goop outside of that. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard for you to get the rope through at the end. The other thing I'm going to do is treat it to make sure that it's not going to rust in there. The stuff I like is Corrosion X. This stuff is fantastic. You've probably seen people talking about it. You may even have some. It's really an absolute amazing stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this same pipe cleaner sort of on the other side, give it a little spray there. I have it in the spray bottle, which, as about 30% of the reviews said, the spray bottle quit working. What mine does is it works once, maybe twice, and then it won't work again for a few days. So it's obviously building up pressure of some kind. So I've put marine goop on here, I've put Corrosion X on here, and I'm just passing that through a few times, just because I'm paranoid and I want to make sure nothing rusts out, okay? And then I'll probably repeat this when I do maintenance. I have a pretty specific maintenance treatment that I do to my kayak every time when it comes back from out in the water. And I'll go over that with you in a different video. So I'm using my new seat today for the first time, the fully modified one. And one thing I did notice is that it shifted me back in the boat considerably. I'm much closer to the stern than I was before. So I've got the pedal set at just above 1. I'm not even sure you can set it any lower. I'm 5'7" with short legs. So if you're any shorter than me, this probably is not going to work for you. If you're taller, I'm sure it'll be fine. But I just had to shift everything back. But it's nice and comfy. I've got my little shock absorbers here. The angle's good. And so far, my back feels a million times better. I can't reach the tiller, but I've done my tiller modification. That's another thing. If you've got long arms, you can probably reach, but for me, this constant reaching is one of the problems. So by cutting that out, I'm going to be much more comfortable. Beautiful day. It's really nice. I'm surprised there aren't more people out on the water. I'm sure they'll show up. What I did is I just tied a little bow here to hold this on either side of my leg. And you can see it runs through the grommet hole we put through, and then it's down through this other hat eye. And so as I go along, I just give a little tug to either side, and I can make minor adjustments to where I'm going. which is usually about what I need. You know, I don't know if the boat tracks straight. It's impossible to tell. I mean, maybe it would track straighter with a skeg, but certainly wouldn't track straighter with a keg. At least if I was using it. But the shore moves, you know, like the shore is not smooth, and there's current and there's wind, so who knows. We'll try it. So this is that knife in position. I put it on the side of the holder that I'm using to elevate my seat, and it slides right in there pretty nicely. It's not really in the way. I just use tie wraps to put it on, but it's definitely pretty easy. This is just a bait knife. I'll give a link to it down below.